Hi, welcome back. My name is Daniel, and in this video, I'd like to rate, compare, and discuss all different types of treatments that people use to recover from conditions such as chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, fibromyalgia, long COVID, chronic Lyme, and similar types of labels. And I will rate them based on my experience as a health coach and someone who was chronically ill himself, on points such as effectiveness, short-term results, difficulty, and whether there is gaslighting involved. So let's start with the first approach. This was also my first approach that I did. And this is about diets and supplements. When you are really stressed, you're going to get deficiencies. And you can supplement these deficiencies with all kinds of things like better diets or supplements. So with this approach, we assume that these deficiencies are causing your symptoms, or your bad diet is causing your symptoms. And you're basically going to focus a lot on diet. Certain things are going to be bad for you, certain things are going to be good for you. And it doesn't last long before you're spending a whole lot of money on all kinds of supplements. It's like $20 here for something and then $20 there. And it does help for secondary complaints. Because if you are very stressed, you can deplete your minerals very fast. And then it helps to supplement minerals, for example. But it's not a long-term strategy because the mineral deficiency was not the root cause behind your symptoms. When I score this treatment, then I give a 10% based on effectiveness. But in the short term, I give it a 30 because it can really make you feel better once you supplement with, for example, magnesium. It's not difficult, so I give it 10 for difficulty, a 40 on gaslighting, because you sort of assume that this is the root cause behind your symptoms, and you're not really looking underneath or to the more painful things inside of you. And the overall score I give it is a 10. The next treatment is old school pacing. And old school pacing sort of makes you a spoonie. So what you're saying is that you have limited amount of energy, and therefore a limited amount of activities that you can do. And you can rate the activities that you do with points, energy points. For example, something very intensive can be 4 points for half an hour, whereas something easy and small can be 1 point for every half an hour. At the end of the day, you calculate these points together, and this is what you got, and you have to expand very, very slowly. The thing is that with this approach, you're not looking at the underlying reason why you are bedbound or having symptoms in the first place. And therefore, it's also a form of gaslighting. I give this treatment a 30% on effectiveness because it can help in the short term to not go extreme from doing nothing at one day to doing everything that you need to do on the next day. And in the short term, it can even be better because you give yourself, again, a safe protocol to follow. The difficulty is pretty intense here because what you're going to notice is that your energy is all over the place because it's not really the activity that makes you feel tired or symptomatic. It's what's happening underneath. It's not like you have a lack of energy, but more a lack of stress and emotional ability. So the gaslighting in this scale is 30, and the overall score I give it is a 30. Then the next one is mind-body work. In mind-body approaches, it is said that the brain creates symptoms to protect you from all kinds of things, such as activities, or people, or emotions, thoughts. But the brain is making a mistake. Those symptoms are not needed at all. So there's something wrong with how your limbic brain is perceiving the world. And we have to say that whenever there is a symptom, like, no, don't buy it. Don't fall in the trap of believing that their symptoms are real and just continue your life. This can be very effective, especially Dr. John Sarno had good results with it for people with chronic back pain. But when the symptoms get more extreme, for example, ME, CFS, I noticed that it doesn't really help that much because it becomes very difficult to ignore the symptoms. And the symptoms are so overwhelming that they take up all your attention. Plus, if you're not buying into one symptom, the limbic brain can easily just create a whole different types of symptom that make you have vertigo. And when you stand up, you fall down instantly, or make you so nauseous that you need to vomit. And therefore, for ME/CFS, it's not the most effective treatment, but it can definitely help, especially if your symptoms are milder. So I give it a 40 on effectiveness. In the short term, it can be even more effective, so I give it a 60. The difficulty is not so much, so I give it a 20 for difficulty. There's quite a lot of gaslighting involved because you just basically blame the brain for everything. So a 60 for gaslighting, but the overall score is a 40, which is, I think, pretty good. Then brain retraining, pretty interesting. I'd like to add regular to it, regular brain retraining, because this is the brain retraining how it sort of started. This is what I did 8 years ago when I was bedbound myself. In this type of brain retraining, we sort of say stop to whatever that we don't want. Emotions, thoughts, symptoms, we basically do a stop, maybe a hard stop. I don't want this. What do I want? I want to feel at ease. I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel love. I want to feel joy. I want to feel excitement. And then what you're going to do is to visualize having that. And therefore you can stop yourself from a negative cycle or a negative pattern and break that with positivity. And the funny thing is that this can really work a lot, especially in the short term, and especially in the long term as well, if the root problem, the root cause behind your symptom has already been resolved. When I did this myself, I noticed a huge improvement. And that was basically because I was so negative. For a few years already, I had a chronic illness. And every day became about symptom management and about not having a life, about being in bed day after day after day, not sleeping well. I was just very fed up. I was very negative. And brain retraining stopped me from being that. And therefore, I felt an immediate improvement. And I was making the state of joy and love easier in my life. But unfortunately, it did not resolve the root cause behind my issues. And therefore, I had good results in the beginning. So I give it an 80 on the short-term results, but a 40 for long-term effectiveness. It's not difficult at all. Anyone can teach this. Anyone can do this. So I give it a 20 on difficulty. The difficult thing about it is that you maybe need to do it every time you've got a symptom, which can be 100 or 1,000 times a day, which is a lot and pretty annoying. There is gaslighting involved, as you probably noticed, so I give it an 80 on gaslighting. And the thing with brain retraining and different types of singular approaches is that they often give the client the feeling that they're doing it wrong whenever they don't get the results that they want. But the overall score with 40 is pretty okay. Then, the next method, calming down the nervous system. This is a very popular one. In this approach, they basically tell you that the nervous system is dysregulated or maybe even broken. There is something wrong with the nervous system, just like there was something wrong with the brain before. But now the nervous system is the victim. And that seems correct because you are very stressed probably. So it makes sense to calm down. So what you're doing is a number of treatments. For example, the vagus nerve, doing all kinds of touching yourself, or yoga nidra, meditation, visualizations, and so on. There are so many things out there. And in the short term, you'll notice that after every calming down method, you get calmer again. But sooner or later, your whole life becomes about techniques to calm down the nervous system, because the root problem has probably not been dealt with. For a few people, it has already been resolved, but for the most, not. But I give it still a 40% on effectiveness. The short-term results can be even better with 70. The difficulty is around 30 because there are so many ways that you can do this. There is some gaslighting involved because you basically blame the nervous system. So 40 on that. And the MindBody approach, brain retraining, and calming down the nervous system are very similar, and they're often combined together. Unfortunately, that doesn't make them more effective because they're all pretty much the same. But the overall score with 50 is still pretty okay. calming down the nervous system is a very good approach to start with, especially when you want to do other treatments, because from a state of chronic stress, you can't really resolve anything. Therefore, with the release process, we also start with calming down the nervous system. And on the website, if you follow the link below, there are a lot of guided meditations that can help you calm down. So enjoy them. Then psychotherapy, emotional healing. So it makes sense, right? If we know that the limbic brain can perceive emotions as a danger and create symptoms, or maybe create the nervous system to be dysregulated, then let's go to the root cause behind it, emotions. Let's go to therapy, psychotherapy maybe. And once a week you can see a practitioner. It seems like a good plan. The problem is just that you're going to see your practitioner maybe once a week. And you become very dependent because you're not learning how to use the tools yourself every day. And still up to this day, I'm still using release tools to release emotions on a daily basis. If I have to wait 6 days or 7 days for the practitioner, I feel like I'm just waiting. And in the meantime, you should learn the tools because you become so dependent on your practitioner. And if your practitioner is good, then you're lucky. But if your practitioner is bad, then you're having bad luck. And a lot of the times, the practitioners don't really know how to find that exact emotion that is causing the symptoms. And you're just sort of shooting like everywhere, like maybe this, maybe that, maybe you start going into childhood from a chronological order. And before you know it, it becomes very negative. And that means also that it becomes very difficult. The therapist might do some things with you that you're not ready for. For example, EMDR. If you're not ready for an EMDR session, then after a session, you can maybe have 1 week or even more extreme symptoms. And that's like more protection mechanisms from the brain. Like, don't go there, don't go there. And as long as you have these symptoms, you did not have a full release. And that's why I think this is a very difficult approach, and I give it a 90 for difficulty. There's not a lot of gaslighting involved. I give it a 20 on gaslighting, basically because you can sort of blame your childhood, blame your parents, and say you're so traumatized, and that's not really helpful at all. For every symptom, there is usually one emotion. Find the emotion and you can release it. But yeah, if you have to wait for an entire week, that's not very effective. So the effectiveness is 50, short-term results 10, very low, because you're sort of like not really with a clear plan to go through this. But the overall score is 50, and I think it's very important, especially for healthy people, that they go to therapy and that they learn about their emotions and their unconscious mind. The next treatment is somatics, and somatics has become very popular. It is about creating a connection with your body. Your body is the place where you've stored emotions, where you've stored stress. It's also the place where the brain is located and where the nervous system is located. And you can find a way to recreate a connection with your body, which is very important, especially when you are thinking all the time, being a walking head, being anxious all the time, or doing a lot of coping mechanisms. Then getting a connection with your body is very important. It is as well very difficult because the body can be very dangerous, but it's very effective. So I give it a 60 on effectiveness, 40 for the short-term strategy, difficulty as well, 60. There's not a lot of gaslighting involved, maybe not enough even here, just a 10. And the overall score I give it is a 60. So that's pretty good. And then finally, I call it a holistic release process. It's what we do in the release program. Is we calm people down via all kinds of ways. We do brain retraining, but in a completely different way, in a way where we make the emotions safe and where you start caring about yourself, where you're not gaslighting yourself that much. And then eventually you can find the stress inside of your body that is causing the symptoms. by not being focused on the physical symptoms, but on the emotion that you can find along your organs. If you tune into this, then the symptoms will amplify. So you know exactly what is causing the symptoms. If you then start working with it, you can resolve it and you can become symptom-free. So that's a huge thing. First, you can switch it on demand, and then you can switch it off on demand, which is very, very powerful. This is mostly a long-term strategy. So the long-term effectiveness is 80, and it sort of makes you be able to live your life, even though you still sometimes get symptoms, but then you start diving into your body and find the underlying stressor and then release it. So I give our method, but also other programs that are very similar, an 80 on effectiveness. And the short term, I give it a 40. The difficulty, 70. It's not really about the difficulty of all the different tools that you can use, but it can become very difficult to deal with your own resistance layers and facing everything that you don't want to look at. Because you have to face your fears, you have to face your anger, you have to face your boundaries, and it's uncomfortable. Even me, whenever I have emotions, I don't really want to dive in and feel that uncomfortable feeling. So there is resistance that you're going to deal with. So 70 on difficulty. There is still some gaslighting, unfortunately. I think we need some gaslighting, as you saw with brain retraining. Sometimes it all becomes, there's just another emotion there, or I just need a release, or the brain is making mistakes, and we're doing what we can to make this gaslighting free as possible. And clients can feel rushed into having a release because they have symptoms and they want to experience this release. But this is not always possible, especially not in the beginning. So the overall score I give this method is 80. And if you'd like to find out more about the release process, then visit as well the link underneath. It's what we do. We have a community where you can connect with others, where you can share questions and help each other and support each other. You can have a healing buddy by doing the work together. We also offer group coaching sessions. So we like to have a really nice community where we can heal together. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I see you in the next video.